Welcome back to Supervisors. Last time we went over the career of Masahiro Shimanuki and spoke in detail about how he went from being one of the best animators on Dragon Ball to struggling to get to grips with the series while working on Super. While today we're covering one of his juniors from back on Z who has since overtaken him and become one of the most well-regarded and interesting animators working at Toei. His work isn't for everyone, but it is undeniably fantastic. With what appears to be a huge episode coming up, now seems like the best time to tackle this man's impressive career. This is Naoki Tate. As an in-betweener for Seigasha, Tate made his debut in July of 1987 on the second Dragon Ball film, Sleeping Princess in Devil's Castle. He would remain an in-betweener for the next 3 years, working on Dragon Ball and onward into Z, before being promoted to a key animator at the same time that Masahiro Shimanuki and Kazuya Hisada were promoted to the supervisor role. Having in between the work of these two up until this point, Tate's contributions as a key animator felt like a combination of their styles. From Shimanuki, he would learn the importance of impact and impressive effects. And from Hisada, he would take dramatic poses and dynamic action. That's not to say he had no distinctive traits of his own. In fact, his character art was very unique, so much so that it's hard not to notice when he delivers a scene. Perhaps most recognizable of all is his love of hugely thick eyebrows and very slanted eyes to give off more intense expressions. It's actually this ability to make characters emote so well that made his work stand out so much. When characters were hit, very often you'd find their faces scrunched up into uncomfortably ugly expressions, or mouths would fly open to extreme sizes. Tate's ability to exaggerate for more effective animation would become a defining trait, and it's something you'll see grow and grow and grow throughout this video. Tate would become one of the biggest animators on Dragon Ball, delivering a number of key scenes throughout the various TV series, working on major films such as Fusion Reborn, and even handling a commercial. Though I've called his work outstanding and unique, I'm really talking within the context of Dragon Ball at this point. Compared to the output of top-tier animators in the industry at the time, his work wouldn't have turned too many heads. While it's decent, it was never going to inspire critics and fans to discuss his work at length like they do today. While Tate was working his way up through Toei, so was another animator who would play one of the biggest parts in transforming Tate into the powerhouse he is today. This is Mamoru Hosoda. While Hosoda had provided some promising work for Dragon Ball in the past, he caught everyone's attention with his work on the Digimon franchise. He was the director of Digimon Adventure Movie 1 alongside Digimon Adventure Our War Game. Both films were outstandingly well made, but it was the latter that marked the beginning of a style that would become a hallmark of Hosoda's work for years to come. Thanks to character designer Takaaki Yamashita, designs were very minimalist, abandoning shadow and excessive detail in favor of block colors and exaggerated movement. It was unique and expressive and all around just fantastic. This work pushed Hosoda directly into the limelight, and he was invited to Studio Ghibli to direct Howl's Moving Castle. While this was all happening, Tate had left Seigasha and was now working as an in-house animator at Toei. Alongside Hisada and Shimanuki, the trio were plowing through the first few years of Toei's One Piece adaptation. While you might be able to pick out Tate's work if you're explicitly looking for it, there's nothing about it that's particularly noteworthy. To be perfectly honest, outside of the first few movies, One Piece wasn't particularly well animated, instead relying on consistent character art and storyboarding. But this was all about to change. Hosoda's time at Ghibli was not a very positive one. The staff at the time were busy working on Miyazaki's Spirited Away, meaning Hosoda was forced to gather all of the staff for himself. Despite pulling together a pretty impressive array of talent, the project collapsed and wouldn't be completed until Miyazaki took over later down the line. Not wanting to let down the staff he'd gathered, Hosoda agreed to come back to Toei to produce one last film for the studio. This would become One Piece Movie 6, Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island. With character designs by Sushio, Takaaki Yamashita, and Chikashi Kubota, the film had one of the most distinctive visual styles the series had ever seen. Much like the Digimon movie, the designs were rough and simple, which allowed many of the legendary animators on board to deliver absolutely outstanding work, packed to the brim with character and style. This film is considered one of the best features Toei has ever produced, and it has influenced an entire generation of animators. Tate is no exception, and his work on One Piece would be forever changed from this point. In episode 212, his work was pretty standard, but by the next time his episode rolled around, he was already beginning to mimic the art and animation found within the film. To begin with, he didn't quite seem to understand the intricacies required to pull off this style, meaning a lot of his early animation felt like cheap knockoffs of some of the best parts of the film. He was relentless in trying to adopt this style. Unfortunately, it began to pay off. By episode 304, he was beginning to get to grips with more abstract motion, and his promising work landed him the position of character designer and supervisor of One Piece Movie 9. When he returned for episode 361, his work was entirely transformed, featuring unique movement and timing. His episodes throughout the late 300s and onwards were some of the best episodes that One Piece had ever seen. His work had taken on a life of its own. He had mastered the ability to move through dozens of different expressions in seconds, and his action animation was beautifully fluid with distinctive smears and gorgeous effects. He was even afforded the privilege of being able to produce his own character designs for episodes to really bring a level of consistency across the board. Yet after coming so far, he still couldn't resist the occasional homage to the work that really elevated his career. Despite being a franchise animator at Toei, his work caught the attention of people outside of the company, leading to him working on external series such as Cash Earned Sins and Guilty Crown. He also got to meet his maker when he was brought on board by Hosoda himself as a key animator for one of his next big films, Summer Wars. Tate was on top and was even brought on to Toei's Toriko adaptation in an attempt to spice up the fight scenes on what was a sinking ship of a series. When Toriko went under, he made his way onto Disc Wars Avengers, a big collaboration between Toei and Disney Japan. He had great success on the series and was even made a character designer next to Dragon Ball veteran Tadayoshi Yamamuro. No matter where Tate went, he brought his unique style with him and elevated episodes from average to genuinely interesting. Despite Tate's success in the industry, his work hasn't been exempt from criticism by fans. Sometimes it's ignorant comments from viewers who don't quite understand what Tate's about. They think he can't draw, or they think his work isn't fit for a certain series. But other times it's perfectly reasonable comments like, "It's good, but it's not my cup of tea." Unfortunately, Tate's debut as a supervisor on Dragon Ball Super came with episode 5, and he was subject to a whole new wave of criticism, and it wasn't even his fault. Thanks to the show's terrible pre-production, the details of which you can find in my own video linked on the screen now, the schedule was in a terrible place. Tate had just finished a lengthy cut in episode 2 and was expected to supervise episode 5. That sounds okay on paper, but of course the production collapsed, meaning a majority of the work was rushed and unfinished. Tate wasn't even credited as a key animator on episode 5, but you could clearly see his presence throughout many scenes. He had done everything in his power to get something out on time. Despite Tate's own cuts in the second half being okay and a nice throwback to his art in Z-Movie 12, he was thrown under the bus by uninformed fans and publications. His next episode was episode 11, which felt like a huge middle finger to everyone who had doubted his abilities. It didn't feature much in the way of actual animation, but he put away his progressive style and produced a very safe episode. He returned in episode 18 with work that was significantly more interesting. He played around with great facial expressions and even managed a few fun short action scenes. You could really get to grips with some of his traits here. For example, he likes to have jaws actually move. In a lot of shows, the jaw will stay static and the mouth will simply flap. Tate loves to actually move the face and really give characters some genuine expression. The Resurrection F arc was the worst the series had ever been. Animators were popping up all over the place just to get things done, and so much of it was outsourced to cheap studios. Tate provided an awesome Frieza transformation on another Supervisors episode, but it was episode 26 where he finally blew us away. The first half of episode 26 is animated entirely by Naoki Tate, and the difference in quality between the first and second half makes that plainly clear. This was the first time we'd seen his work in its purest form, and it was absolutely marvelous. He produced a cut between Goku and Frieza that was not only the best piece of work Super had ever seen, but it also wormed its way onto several Best Animation of 2015 lists. The cut begins with Frieza's point of view pummeling a simplified Cell-era looking Goku trapped in his tail. Each swing is covered in Tate's gorgeous pencil lines to emphasize the swing and impact. It cuts to Goku's reaction before he turns and bites Frieza's tail. The facial expressions on both characters are amazing. Watch how Frieza's neck extends as he pulls this wonderful face. Tate mixes humor so well with the action. As Frieza moves to the next pose, he goes through 6 different expressions before he settles. Next, Goku turns into this gorgeous smear as he's pinged over the head of Frieza. It cuts and Tate animates us through a zoom onto Frieza in this intense pose. The exposure on the camera increases as Goku lands a hit and the camera zooms back out again. Everything is always moving within this cut. Whether it's the characters or the camera, everything is so dynamic. Look how beautifully the hand turn is animated. As it comes down, it once again turns into a gorgeous smear before returning to form. As Goku comes in with the elbow, we're shown two wonderful impact frames. Frieza pushes forwards towards the camera with his hand, but Tate uses this to add weight to the kick Frieza throws instead. Again, several different facial expressions and beautiful smears. An elegant arm movement and yet another two beautiful impact frames. There's so much going on in this cut at every moment, and there is yet to be anything in Super that rivals this. Tate's work might be loose and it might abstract at times, but it's his great understanding of how the body works that allows him to break conventions successfully when he needs to. His character acting in episode 32 demonstrates this nicely, whether it's Jacko working through a bizarre introduction or something as simple as Goku lifting his arm up. Watch how the peck and trap slightly lift as Goku raises his arm. His ability to blend realism and exaggerated movement makes for some incredibly interesting animation. At the start of episode 38, you have Vegeta letting his arms go loose, and as he gets hit they swing about realistically. Yet in the next frame, Tate brings back the cartoonish gaping mouths that he was so known for back in Z. All of these skills come together to form one exceptional animator, and thankfully one that Toei recognizes the talent of. As you can see, Tate has been given some of the biggest episodes of Dragon Ball Super. Not only did he handle the opening of the Future Trunks arc, but he's working with another supervisor on next week's episode featuring the highly anticipated rematch of Goku and Goku Black. His work is certainly an acquired taste. His loose adherence to character sheets turns away some fans who aren't used to an animator who dares to draw unconventionally. Whether you love his work or prefer more conventional approaches, it's hard to deny his overwhelming presence in an episode. It's a shame that the quality of his output is a little rougher than normal thanks to Super's schedule, but as someone who ranks him very highly, just knowing that he'll deliver something worthwhile every few weeks is a good feeling. As always, you can find the animator's highlights in the description of this video alongside my social media. Let me know your thoughts on the video in the comment section below and be sure to subscribe for more content. Thanks for listening and I will see you next time.